Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the Akim out there pushing this word out in sincerity and in truth. And shalom to the Aqua, to the sisters that are listening and learning. I say shalom. I want to go into this thing that Vocab Malone, I haven't gone into it for a while, but these are, this is basically milk. The Lord Yahweh, really Yahweh and Yahweh Shai, all right, are so-called Negroes, So you had the tribes of Israel that were so-called Negroes as well. I had this dude at work bring that up. Yesterday I watched that video that Vocab Malone had posted up, saying, Jeremiah 14 isn't talking about, the darkness of, the dark skin, or, just going into how Hebrew Israelites are wrong for that and straining at gnats. Okay, that's all they're doing. They're straining at gnats. They're not going to go into prophecy and say, oh, you didn't break down the Revelations 13 correctly, and this is the true breakdown. They're not going to go into any of that because they don't know it. Okay, so they swallow down camels. Okay, but they strain at gnats. So this is Matthew 23 and 24. Ye blind guides, which strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. All right. So when you go into the word guides, hodagos, which means a leader of the way. Okay, a guide, a teacher of the ignorant and inexperienced. Okay, and we're those teachers too. Okay, we teach the inexperienced, but we teach them to gain experience. At Great Millstone, they teach you to gain experience. And if you're in Great Millstone and you don't want to gain experience, all you want to do is hang out with brothers, and all you want to do is just, have Israelite parties, and go join IUIC, man. Or go join some other Israelite camp. All right, because at Great Millstone, they're about that work, man. Rightly dividing the word of truth. You see? But Vocab Malone and them apologists and, them dudes, man, they don't care about scripture. They don't care about Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai. They don't care about the truth. Okay, what they care about is themselves. Like it says in the book of Sirach, I believe it's 39. All right, there are friends. Okay, there are friends out there that are only for the belly. And we're supposed to be friends, man. Those people that are according to Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai are friends. Not in the sense of, hey, buddy, you want to, go do this or go do that. Some brothers may do that, but we're friends in the eyes of Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai because we have one mind and one accord. So they say, it's not important if the Lord is a so-called Negro, or, if he's, he looks like a, he looks like a dark-skinned man. It doesn't matter. What matters is this, and that. Okay, that's true. Partially. But it really does matter. It matters what color Yahweh Shai was, because even just that, the carnal are going to expose themselves. The carnally minded, like it says in the book of Romans chapter 8, the carnally minded, okay, they're going to go after those things, man. They're going to go after the carnal stuff. So we have to be spiritual, but certain things are spiritual and carnal at the same time. It's spiritual that we're waking up, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. We're waking up to this truth, to breaking down the scriptures, to listening, to tuning in, to being, our hearts turning to the Father and the Father to the sons. That's spiritual. And it all started with knowing that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, carnals, all right, the carnal, the flesh, okay, are, the Israelites, So hodagos means a leader of the way, all right? So you blind leaders, you strain at a gnat, okay? Strain at a gnat like Jeremiah 14, which, can really, when you go into Jeremiah 14, it really could seem either or. Either it's the gates, literal gates, but how can a gate languish? Okay? How can a gate languish? What are the gates of Israel? The people. All right, the people of Israel are the gates of Israel, man. You know, the kingdom of heaven is within you. All right, so let's go to Jeremiah 14, and then we'll go into a couple precepts, Lord willing, through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So this is Jeremiah chapter 14, verse 1. The word of Yahweh that came to Jeremiah concerning the dearth. All right, now let's go into that word dearth. Which is Batazarath, which is dearth, drought, destitution. Okay, so when you look up the destitution, it's dire poverty. You see, so poverty, you know, going through certain things, famine. All right, whenever you have a so-called Negro and they go through famine, their skin gets darker, man. You know, the skin actually gets darker, even with so-called, so-called white people. Whenever they go through famine, all right, their skin gets darker too. You know, they get patchy, they get red spots, and they also get darker spots. You know, so it says the word of Yahweh, verse 1, that came to Jeremiah concerning the dearth. It says, Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. They are black unto the ground, and cry, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. Okay, how are the gates, all right, of Jerusalem gonna cry up, and how are the gates gonna languish? You know, but you know how our adversary, the devil, is, man. You know, they're gonna go into whatever they feel is exposing, okay, and say, no, that's not what that means. That's talking about literal gates, you know. But how are the gates gonna languish? You know. So this one can go either or. You know, Elder Apostle Tahar had gone into that, and he said, you know, it could be the gates, the actual literal gates. But there's more scriptures besides Jeremiah 14 and 2 that prove that the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, all right, were dark-skinned men. Number one, all right, the Sudanese, which were the original Egyptians, okay, the Sudanese people, those were the Egyptians back then, you know. That's really how the Egyptians looked, you know, because there was mixing and stuff among them before Israel even went to Egypt, you know. But the Judites, all right, the Judah, Benjamin, Levi, even all Israel, really all Israel, you know, plenty of times had gone to Egypt during the time of famine, or during the time of hard times, or hard trouble, or bondage, or, you know, what have you. Their escape was always going back to Egypt. You know, they always went back to Egypt. Now, how the hell is a pale-skinned Mary, a pale-skinned Joseph, and a pale-skinned Yahushai, all right, which that in itself is just blasphemous, okay? But how the hell are pale-skinned Israelites gonna go to Egypt to hide? Okay? How are they going to go to Egypt to hide? You know? They're not going to go to Egypt amongst other Israelites in Egypt and hide amongst, you know, other dark-skinned or pale-skinned people, man. You know, because the pale-skinned people in Egypt were really in Alexandria, were Edomites, all right, the Greeks, you know, that were in really, really high position. But even at that by that time, by Yahushai's time, they didn't have that. You know? So you got to go into the history and realize that when they went into Egypt, they weren't going to go to the high-ranking classes and, you know, being, you know, rich people. Okay? They went with their Israelite family members, or not family members, but, you know, of the genus of Israel, you know, and we're the poor of the earth, you see. So when they went there, they went to the ghettos, you know, which when you look up the word ghetto, it means the dwelling place of the Jews, because the Jews were always dwelling in ghettos wherever they went. They were the lowly of the earth, man. You know, you have that movie, what's it called, Enter the Dragon, with Bruce Lee, you know, and, you know, you have this dark-skinned brother, that said, as he was driving in that boat, he was in that boat, he looked at the at the Chinese, and that Chinese island, or that Chinese place, and the poor people were there, and he said, this reminds me of back home in the ghettos. There's not really too much of a difference. And that's true, because you have Israelites mingled among all the nations, and in all those nations that we're in, Deuteronomy 28 always plays out. There's no Israelites in no communities that are prospering and being on top of the whole earth, man. We're under, no matter where you go, cursed shall thou be in the city, cursed shall thou be when thou goes in, cursed shall thou be when thou goes out. No matter where we go, we're cursed, man. We're a cursed people, okay? And the only way that we can get these curses off of us is not through ourselves, but through Yahweh Bashem Yahushai after we're saved. So it says, Judah mourneth, all right? Talking about Judah, all right? That means Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof languish. Okay, so how can a gate, sha'ir, all right, gate of entrance, gate of space inside the gate, i.e. the marketplace, public meeting place. You see, the city, town, gate, a palace, royal castle, temple, court of tabernacle. Who's the court of the tabernacle of the Most High? The Israelites, okay? And heaven, where's the kingdom of heaven? Within the Israelites. Like Yahweh Shai said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. You see? Why? Because they were Israelites. It says, the gates thereof languish. Now, when you go into the word amal, it means to be weak, to droop, to languish, to be exhausted. Past participle, to be weak, to droop. Okay? It's not really, it couldn't really be talking about just the gates, man. What does that have to do with anything? Judah's mourning, and the gates, that hold Judah up are sad, or they're loopy, or they're down. It's been talking about the Judites, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, the southern kingdom, So to grow feeble, our people were feeble. Why were they feeble? Because there was no water. It was a time of famine, Gates aren't gonna, actual literal gates are not going to fall down because the inhabitants weren't drinking water, because the inhabitants weren't eating. It's talking about the kingdom, the kingdom of Judah. It was weak because they were going through a time of famine, so it couldn't possibly be talking about the gates, man. Like Elder Apostle Tahar said, it could, there's a possibility, but not really, because when you go into the whole chapter, it's not talking about no gates, it's talking about the actual people within those gates, in that marketplace, in the city, the inhabitants. So it says, they are black unto the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem is gone up. All right, now is that talking about the physical place Jerusalem, or the people? Are the people going to cry out, or is the actual land going to cry out? You see what I'm saying? So it couldn't possibly be talking, it couldn't be talking about, okay, Judah mourneth, all right, the people of Judah are mourning, the gates are mourning, and the city is mourning. It's talking about the people, man, because a gate can't mourn. That's dead, dead material, So it says, they are black unto the ground, and cry of Jerusalem is gone up. And when you go into that word black, it means kadar. So it says to mourn, to be dark. All right, to be dark, to darken, to cause to mourn. It says to grow dark. It says mourn, black, dark, blackish, darkened, heavily. All right, so the Israelites were going through a time of famine, and that part I do see where they're coming from, because it doesn't say their skin, is black, because we're not even black, okay? We're brown, whether you're a Latino or a Native American or a so-called Negro, all right, you're brown. There's no such thing as black unless you're, Sudanese, because those people are dark as hell, and they're Hamites. But look at this. Strong's definition of kadar is a primitive root, to be ashy. All right, to be ashy, Why? Because they had no water, man. All right. So this is talking about, it says, i.e. dark colored. You see? Why were they dark colored? It says, by implication, to mourn in sackcloth or sordid garments, to be blackish, be made dark. All right. So it could simply be talking about the mourning part, but it could also talk about, during a time of famine, if you're a dark-skinned man, during the time of famine, all right, when that sickness sticks to your skin, you get darker. You get darker spots, So when you actually go to the CSB, it says, Judah mourns, her city gates languish, her people, you see? Her people are on the ground in mourning. Jerusalem's cries rise up. You see, so it's talking about the people. So that word black, all right, I believe, it could be talking about the skin color, but it's mainly talking about the mourning because of the famine that is going around at this time, But let's go to Revelations first. Let's go to chapter 4 and verse 2. Revelations 4:2. And immediately I was in the spirit, and behold, a throne was set in heaven, and one sat on the throne, and he that was to look upon like a jasper stone and a sardine stone, and there was a rainbow round about the throne, in sight like unto an emerald. Okay, so it's talking about a man sitting on the throne, and it described the man, what he looked like, and then it described what the throne looked like. Okay, so it was a beautiful color around the throne, and then a hewn, color, a brownish color on the man sitting on the throne. And to prove that, on the CSB, it says, verse 3, the one seated there had the appearance of a jasper and a carnelian stone. A rainbow that had the appearance of an emerald surrounded the throne. Now, when you go into that word carnelian, all right, in Spanish, carne means flesh. Okay? Carne means flesh. Okay? So a fleshly color stone. So if it's green, clearly it's not going to be fleshly colored, right? Let's look it up. Carnelian stone is a semi-precious stone consisting of an orange or orange-red variety of chalcedony. Carnelian is a brownish red mineral commonly used as a semi-precious gemstone. Okay? And that's why they call it carnelian stone, or a jasper stone, or sardine stone. So let's look up sardine stone. Sardine and pilcard are commonly names to refer to very small, oily, let me see up here, younger sardine stone, select. It says a brownish red mineral stone. Okay, so that's what that stone is, man. Let's actually look it up. That's a carnelian stone. All right, it has a brownish, all right, reddish, right here, etched carnelian beads. Okay, so Yahweh, all right, Yahweh and Yahweh have that sardine looking skin tone. All right, jasper stone. Jasper, an aggregate or micro granular quartz and chalcedony and other minerals phases. Look what color it is, man. That's a brownish color. Okay, so Yahweh Shem Yahweh, it has a reddish brown color to his skin. So over here, jasper, it says an opaque reddish brown variety of chalcedony, a kind of hard fine porcelain, invented by Joaz. So let's go into here. All right, let's look up chalcedony. Let me see if Slovakia. All right, Chalcedonian says often milky or grayish. Let's see here. It doesn't really give me a link or anything to look it up. All right, but so it's a brownish stone, man. All right, a brownish looking stone, right? Carnelian. Let's see if they have any. All right, they have chalcedony. See, that's brown. The onyx has a brownish color to the carnelian stone. All right, so it's a brown with reddish, like a red bone, and it's simple to see it, man. All right, but they're gonna strain at a net and look at Jeremiah 14:2 and say, no, that could be talking about the gates. It's not talking about anything else. It's talking about this. It's talking about that. It's talking about the ground. Well, in that case, all right, when Adam was created from the ground, what color was he? If he was created from the ground, what color is the ground, the soil? Ashes to ashes, right? What color is ash? The ash that is talking about being the ground, you see? So it says, again, Revelations 4:2, immediately I was in the spirit, and there was a throne in heaven, and someone was seated on it. Who's that someone? Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. Okay, verse 3, and one seated there had the appearance of a jasper and a carnelian stone. A rainbow that had appearance of an emerald surrounded the throne. That's the CSB. Okay, so a jasper stone and a carnelian stone is going to be modern day a Negro. Okay, that's point blank period. There's another one I just remembered by looking at a tree. Mark 8:24. This is when Yahweh healed the man. All right, let me go up a little bit. So it says Mark 8:23. He took the blind man by the hand and led him out of the town. When he had spit in his eyes, he put his hands on him and asked him what if he saw aught. All right, so if he saw anything. It says verse 24. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. Okay, now take a good look at a tree and tell me that looks like a so-called white person. Okay, you can't look at a tree and say, yeah, the way that the bush, the bushy type of hair of the trees being the leaves and the dark, wood. Yeah, that kind of looks like a so-called white person. Hell no, man. That looks like a so-called Negro. I'm looking at a tree right now, and that tree actually looks a lot, that'd be a good thing to go into, So Mark 8:24 explains to you, man, clear as day. Even this blind man can see it, It's talking about so-called Negroes, man. But y'all want to strain at a gnat and say Jeremiah 14:2 is talking about actual gates. It's not talking about this and that. It's not talking about that and this, But there you go, man. They look like trees walking. You see? Why is that? Because they were dark skinned and because they have woolly hair. All right, Afro-ish. And that's what the trees look like. That's a perfect example, man. But y'all want to stick to what you think and you want to stick to, your dogma, all right? And you don't want to hear anything else, man. This is Revelations chapter 1. It's a lock. Let me actually start from verse 3. Revelations 1:3. And blessed is he that readeth, and they that hear the words of this prophecy, and keep those things which are written therein, for the time is at hand. All right. So if you can't get it by now that the Lord is a so-called Negro and you have a problem with that and you come up against that, if you come up against the Lord being a so-called Negro, you have a fucking problem with him, man. Quit fucking around and saying, I don't have a problem with the Lord being black, but he ain't black. Okay. He was, saying he would look like a brown skinned man with a big nose and, kind of curly hair. He wasn't a Negro though. Oh, but there's no problem if he was. You're just watching your tongue, man. Say what you really want to say. All right. You don't want to worship no nigga is basically what you're saying. You know, you goddamn Edomites, man. You know, and you stupid ass heathen too, man. You know, I went to a 7-Eleven not too long ago, okay, and I was just looking at the bread, you know, that they have there at the 7-Eleven, and I was like, man, should I get this? You know, I was gonna get something for my mom, and I was like, should I get this or should I not? And I was like, it doesn't look really too good, you know. And this fucking Elamite looks at me and says, get what you need and come and pay for it. You know, you could tell we're at the end, man. You could tell this isn't our fucking kingdom. You know, why the hell would the kingdom of heaven be like this to the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans? It wouldn't. Why? Because we're at the end. All right, we're at the end times. Okay, so the last kingdom that's going to be before the kingdom of heaven is Esau, Edom. You know? So it says, jumping down to verse, let me see. I believe it was right on the scroll. This is Revelation. Let me start at 12. Revelations 1 and 12. And he turned the voice that spake with me in the KJV. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one like the Son of Man, clothed with a garment down to the foot, which also proves we're not supposed to have those baby garments. Okay? It says, in a gird about the paps with a golden girdle, his head and his hairs were white like wool, and as white as snow, and his eyes were as a flame of fire. Okay? So white like wool, meaning that they were white. All right? But also the texture was like a wool, you know? So the hairs on his head being his hair, and his face being his beard, his eyebrows were white. Okay, that's basically what that's saying in the next verse, or in verse 14 and 15. It says in verse 15, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Okay, so people want to say that, oh, fine brass looks golden. Well, when the hell does an Edomite look golden? You know, ain't nobody look golden. The closest you've gotten is Donald Trump looking orange. You see? So Revelations 1 and 15, when you go into the word brass, all right, just by looking it up, it says a yellow alloy of copper and zinc. Okay, so it says brass is an alloy of copper and zinc. Well, copper is brown, you know, so that's brass in the KJV and the CSB, Revelations 1 and 15. His feet were like the fine bronze. You see that? So let's look up fine bronze. Doesn't have it. So let's look up bronze. What color is that, man? Right here where it says Siri knowledge. Bronze is an alloy consisting primarily of copper. Look what color that is, man. You can't tell me that looks like some damn Edomite. That looks like a sardine stone. All right, that looks like a jasper stone. You see? That's what bronze looks like, man. So it says bronze, a bronze metal, a yellowish brown, all right, a yellowish brown alloy of copper with up to 1/3 tin. All right, so brownish. Okay, feet were like fine bronze, as they were fired in a furnace. So that means dark. And his voice like the sound of cascading waters. All right, now let's actually go into the word brass. Fine brass. And it's calcole banon. All right, calcole banon, some metal like gold, if not more precious. Fine brass. In the implied mean of whiteness or brilliancy. Burnished copper. All right. Let's look up the word burnished. So it means polished up. All right. Let's look up copper. A red brown metal. You see? So when you look at the sardine stone and the jasper stone, what were they? They were reddish brown, right? That's what it means when King David was ruddy. It doesn't mean he looked like some fucking Edomite out in the sun. You know? King David was beautiful, man. All right? And our women are known to be beautiful, especially the darker ones are known to be beautiful, man. You know? So it says a reddish brown metal, the chemical element of atomic number 29, a copper coin. All right. And what do you, when you look at a penny, you can't tell me that that penny looks like an Edomite. Okay. That penny is copper. You know, that penny looks brown. It's a reddish brown color, man. What is so damn hard to understand about that? You know, it's not hard at all. All right. It's just a bunch of, you know, people trying to make excuses as to why the Lord has to be a so-called Negro. So it says, Revelations 1 and 15 again, and his feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. Okay, so that means what? That means he was a dark-skinned man with white hairs. Okay, woolly hairs. So it says, Daniel, what was it? Daniel 4. And was it Daniel 4? Let's see. Side the leaves of prayer. It's a lock. Let me look it up. Like white. That's Daniel 7, Salakia. So Daniel 7 and 9, it says, I beheld the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit. All right, Yahweh. It says, whose garments was white as snow, and had his hair and his head like the pure wool. Now, when you look up pure wool, that's woolly hair, and it's white. So that's talking about texture and color. It says, and the hair of his head like the pure wool, his throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. You know? So a man with woolly hair, dark skin, is what? A so-called Negro, man. You know? So forget about Jeremiah 14. All right, 14 and 2. Focus on Revelations 4, man. Focus on Revelations 4 and 2, and let me know what that is. You know? Since we're so wrong. But you will never admit it. All right? These Christians will never admit who the Lord is, because if they were in an airplane and Yahweh walked into that airplane in peace, all right, they would treat him like shit. They would treat him like a regular ass, you know, human being, all right, of the tribe of Israel, of the tribe of Judah, which are so-called Negroes, and they would make him, you know, get out of the plane, especially if it was, you know, 20 years ago. You know? So, hey, man, you know, call Allah Yahweh Bashim Yahweh for giving us his wisdom, knowledge, understanding. You see? So with that, I want to give all honor, glory, and praise to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh by Hashem Rakak Wadash. Shalom.